Nolan Hayes didn't expect to be scrubbing marble floors in a penthouse that overlooked half of Manhattan while praying his 6-year-old daughter was eating the sandwich he packed her at the Sitters. He rolled the mop over a streak near the glass wall, glancing up just long enough to catch the skyline glowing pink with the sunset. It was the kind of view you only got if your bank account had 7 figures and Nolan's barely had 3. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. If it was the sitter again, she'd have to wait. He was on his 3rd job of the day, and this one cleaning penthouses for a high-end service paid the most. He couldn't afford to lose it, not with rent overdue and his daughter, Ava, needing new shoes. He bent down to wipe a stubborn mark off the baseboard with a rag when the front door clicked open. A woman walked in, heels clicking on the polished floor, one hand holding a designer bag, the other tapping a phone to her ear. "I told them I wanted the contracts reviewed by Friday," she said, her tone sharp but calm. "No, push it back if legal doesn't have time. I'm not sacrificing quality because someone couldn't manage their calendar." Nolan stood up quickly, brushing his damp hands on his jeans. He'd been told the owner would be out for the evening. The woman ended the call and turned, her eyes landing on him like a spotlight. She was stunning. Not just beautiful, but powerful. Tall, with dark waves of hair falling down her back, a black blazer over a silk blouse, and heels that probably cost more than his last paycheck. But it was her eyes that held him intense, observant, and sharp enough to slice through excuses. "You're not Marco," she said flatly. "No, ma'am. I'm with Clean Right Services." Marco called out. "I was assigned to cover tonight." She frowned, then walked past him toward the kitchen. "Did they tell you not to touch the art pieces?" "Yes, ma'am." "And the wine fridge?" "Didn't go near it." She paused, glanced at him again, and set her bag down on the marble island. "You don't talk much." Nolan gave a tight smile. "I try to do more cleaning than talking." She raised an eyebrow at that, then unexpectedly smiled. "What's your name?" "Nolan." "Nolan Hayes." "I'm Naomi Langford," she said, walking around the kitchen counter. "I own the building." He blinked. "The whole building?" She gave a small shrug. "It was a smart investment 5 years ago. Now it's just convenient." Nolan didn't know what to say to that, so he focused on the smudge on the floor by the bar cart. "You always clean this late?" she asked, pouring herself a glass of water. "Sometimes. I pick up extra shifts where I can." "You have kids?" she asked, sipping water without looking up. His throat tightened. "Yeah, a daughter. Ava. She's 6. Naomi finally looked at him again, but this time, her expression softened just a little. "Where is she tonight?" "With a neighbor. I can't afford daycare, so we swap favors." There was a long pause. She put down the glass and leaned on the counter. "That's smart." Nolan shrugged. "It's survival." She studied him like she was trying to figure him out. Then, "Well, you're the first cleaner who didn't leave streaks on the mirror wall. That's something." He gave a small nod, unsure if it was a compliment or a warning. "I'm expecting guests tomorrow," she said. "Think you can come back in the morning and clean the top bathroom and the terrace?" "I can make it work," Nolan said. "What time?" "8 sharp. I'll be here. Bring your daughter if you have to. I have an office room she can stay in. There's Wi-Fi and snacks." Nolan froze. "That's generous." Naomi just gave a half shrug and turned back to her phone. "I don't like messes. That includes people being late because they can't find a sitter." He didn't know what to make of her. She was cold, sharp, but something about the way she said it didn't feel like pity. It felt like respect. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Don't thank me. Just show up on time." He gathered his supplies and left quietly, but the elevator ride down felt different. He couldn't shake the image of her Naomi Langford, millionaire, sharp-tongued and stunning, offering a room for Ava like it was nothing. The next morning, Ava clung to his hand as they stepped into the penthouse. Her wide brown eyes took in the sparkling chandeliers and glass walls like they were in a dream. "Daddy, is this a castle?" Nolan chuckled. "Something like that." Naomi appeared from the hallway, dressed in a navy pantsuit and heels that clicked across the floor. "This must be Ava," she said, crouching down. Ava hid behind Nolan's leg. "She's shy," he said quickly. Naomi nodded. "There's juice and crackers in the office. You can use the tablet on the desk, but no games with ads." Ava peeked out. "Okay." Naomi led them to the office, a sleek room with a plush couch and a view of the city. "I'll leave the door open," Naomi said. Then to Nolan, "She's safe here." "Thank you," he said again, feeling the weight of her kindness settle in his chest. As he cleaned, Naomi worked from her laptop on the couch, occasionally glancing up. At one point, Ava wandered out and handed Naomi a crayon drawing. Naomi blinked. "Is this me?" Ava nodded. "You have nice hair." Naomi actually laughed. "Well, thank you." By noon, Nolan was finishing the terrace when Naomi walked up with 2 sandwiches on a tray. "I figured you might not have eaten. Roast beef okay?" He stared at her. "You really don't have to. I didn't ask if I had to. I asked if it was okay." He took the sandwich. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a moment, overlooking the skyline. "You know," Naomi said slowly, "most people who clean this place don't even look me in the eye." Nolan glanced at her. "Most millionaires don't offer kids juice and crackers." She smiled faintly. "Touché." He looked at her a little too long. She noticed, but didn't look away. Something shifted. Neither of them said it, but they both felt it. That slow, subtle pull. It wasn't a fantasy. It wasn't a dream. But it was the beginning of something, and neither of them saw it coming. Naomi shut her laptop with a decisive click as Nolan gathered the last of the cleaning supplies. The light filtering through the terrace windows had shifted, casting long golden beams across the polished floor. Ava had dozed off on the office couch, a half-eaten cracker still in her hand. "Leave the mop in the utility closet by the back hallway," Naomi said, standing and stretching her arms behind her head. "I've got the rest." Nolan nodded, but hesitated. "She's asleep. I'll carry her down in a second." Naomi glanced toward the office. "Let her rest. It's quiet here. You can come back for her after you wrap up." He watched her walk to the espresso machine and pour herself a shot with the kind of ease that came from doing it 100 times before. Her blazer was gone, and the silk blouse she wore was wrinkled at the sleeves. She looked less like the woman who owned the building and more like someone who hadn't taken a breath all day. "You always work weekends?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "I work all days." She took a sip. "Weekends are just quieter. For someone who owns this place, you don't seem to enjoy it much." She turned, arching an eyebrow. "And what does enjoyment look like to you?" "Not checking your phone every 6 minutes." Naomi let out a low breath that could have been a laugh. "Unfortunately, my company doesn't run itself. I step away too long. Things fall apart." Nolan crossed his arms. "Then maybe it's not built right." Her eyes met his, not with offense, but curiosity. "What would you build differently?" "A business that works even when I'm not chained to it." "Otherwise, what's the point of building anything?" She studied him for a moment, then walked past him toward the terrace. "You ever run a business?" "No, but I know what it's like to lose time you can't get back." Naomi stepped outside without a word. He followed her, the city stretching beyond them in every direction, washed in molten orange from the setting sun. "I started Langford Media out of a 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn," she said after a moment. "Didn't sleep more than 4 hours a night for the first 2 years. I built it with nothing but an old laptop and a stack of rejection emails." Nolan leaned on the railing beside her. "And now you own skyscrapers." She didn't smile. "Now I own silence. Elevators that don't break. Locks that work. Rooms I don't have to share." He turned his head. "You built it all to be alone?" Naomi's fingers tightened around the edge of the railing. "I built it to never be powerless again." The wind picked up slightly, brushing a loose strand of hair across her cheek. Nolan didn't touch her. He didn't need to. The air between them was close enough now to carry things unsaid. "I didn't think I'd like you," she said, still watching the skyline. "You walked in here like this place didn't intimidate you." "It didn't. Most people try to impress me. You didn't." "I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was trying not to get fired." That earned her first real laugh, a short, surprised sound that vanished almost as quickly as it came. "I don't let people in easily," she said after a beat. "I don't trust fast." "I'm not asking you to," he said. She turned to face him fully now, her voice quieter. "But you're curious. Wouldn't be human if I wasn't." Naomi looked at him like she was trying to decide something. Then she stepped closer. "I have a charity auction next Saturday. Black tie. You'd hate it." "Sounds like it." He didn't move back. "I need someone to keep me from strangling a board member." "You interested? You inviting me as a date or a bodyguard?" Her lips twitched. "Maybe both." He looked back toward the office where Ava lay asleep. "Can I bring her?" "There's a private suite upstairs with a nanny and a view of the ballroom." "She'll be fine." He considered that for a long moment. "I don't have a tux. I'll take care of it." He studied her carefully. You do this often? Invite the cleaner to Gallus? No, she said. I don't do this at all. Nolan ran a hand across the back of his neck. Then why now? Naomi stepped back, her eyes unreadable. Because for once, I want to walk into a room and not feel like I have something to prove. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. By the time he returned to the office to carry Ava out, Naomi was already back at her laptop, typing with the same precision he'd seen before. But something in the air had shifted. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was the start of something neither of them could name, but both of them felt. And neither of them wanted to walk away from it. The ballroom glittered like a jewel box. Crystal chandeliers hung high above, casting fractured light across polished marble floors. Waiters in white gloves floated between guests, offering trays of champagne and amuse-bouches that looked more like sculptures than food. A string quartet played in the corner, their music soft enough not to compete with the low hum of elite conversation. Nolan adjusted the stiff collar of his custom-tailored tuxedo for the third time in as many minutes. It still didn't feel like his. The fabric was too smooth, the cut too perfect. He'd never worn anything that fit so well, and he was keenly aware that Naomi had arranged every detail. He stood near the edge of the crowd, acutely aware of how different he was from everyone else in the room. Wealth hung in the air like perfume, subtle but unmistakable. From the women's diamond earrings to the men's hand-stitched lapels, everyone here belonged to a world he'd only ever seen from the outside. Then she entered. Naomi descended the marble staircase without a sound, her gown a flowing sheath of deep navy that shimmered with every step. Her hair was swept back in a sleek twist, and a thin streak of silver traced the curve of her ear, a single, deliberate statement. She didn't wear jewelry like the other women. She wore power. As she approached, people turned. Conversations paused. Even the violinist faltered for a half-beat. You clean up well, she said, stopping in front of him. I'm not sure I recognize myself, he replied. Well, I do, she said. And that's all that matters tonight. He offered his arm, and she took it without hesitation. Together, they stepped into the crowd. Introductions came quickly. Naomi moved through the room with practiced ease, her voice confident, her gaze unflinching. Nolan followed her lead, shaking hands with CEOs and board members, answering polite questions about consulting work she'd invented for him. No one questioned it. No one dared. When Naomi Langford walked in with someone, he belonged. Between the handshakes and the small talk, Nolan leaned closer. You sure these people won't wonder who I really am? They'll wonder, she said, taking a glass of champagne from a tray. But they won't ask? This room runs on curiosity, not courage. He looked around. They respect you. They fear me, she corrected. It's not the same. A man in a sharp charcoal suit approached, his smile too bright, his eyes too slow to blink. Naomi, he said, didn't expect you to bring company tonight. Evidently, she replied coolly. Nolan, this is Everett Crane. He owns the publishing group I divested from last quarter. Ah, Everett said, extending a hand. The infamous cleaner. Nolan took it without flinching. Nice to meet you. You always bring your staff to charity events? Naomi's voice was smooth. No, only the ones who make themselves indispensable. Everett's smile tightened. Well then, I hope he doesn't scrub the floor mid-dinner. Nolan didn't rise to the bait. Only if someone spills something worth cleaning. Naomi's eyes flicked to him, just once. Then she turned back to Everett. We'll catch up another time, she said, already walking away. When they reached the balcony that overlooked the lower level, she exhaled. I warned you it would be exhausting. Nolan leaned on the railing. He doesn't like you. He doesn't like that I outmaneuvered him. He underestimated me. Most of them did. He glanced sideways. And now they wait for me to fail. But they're still waiting. Below them, the auctioneer began announcing the next item, a week-long escape to a private villa in the Seychelles. Why bring me here? Nolan asked. Really? Naomi tilted her head. I already told you. No. You told me you needed someone to keep you from throttling a board member. But you don't need anyone. She didn't answer at first. The bidding war for the villa escalated in the background. I don't need, she said finally. But I want. That's new for me. He turned to face her fully. What do you want? She looked out over the crowd again. I want one night where I don't have to pretend I don't feel anything. One night where I don't have to explain why I trust someone who isn't wearing a six-figure watch. Nolan stepped closer. You don't have to explain anything to me. A waiter approached with 2 flutes of champagne. Naomi took both, handed one to Nolan, and clinked her glass against his. To what? He asked. She met his gaze. To rewriting the rules. They drank in silence. Later, when the string quartet transitioned to a slower melody and the lights dimmed, couples began to drift onto the dance floor. Naomi hesitated only a moment before setting down her glass. Dance with me. Nolan blinked. I don't. You can follow. She extended her hand, and he took it. Her touch was steady, her steps sure. Nolan's movements were rougher, a beat behind at times, but she adjusted effortlessly, never letting him falter. They moved as if they'd done it before, though they hadn't. Not even once. You're not bad, she murmured. I'm guessing that's high praise from you. She gave a quiet laugh. You're learning. He looked down at her, his voice low. So are you. They danced through the end of the song, and another after that. When the music finally paused, Naomi pulled back slightly, her expression unreadable. I need to check on something, she said. I'll be back. Nolan nodded, though something in her tone caught him off guard. She didn't move like someone going to take a call. She moved like someone retreating. He waited. 5 minutes. Then 10. She didn't come back. He weaved through the crowd, dodging conversations and laughter, until he saw her disappearing into a hallway near the back of the ballroom. Her posture was rigid, her steps fast. He followed. The hallway was quiet, lined with framed photos of past galas and faded newspaper clippings. Naomi stood at the far end, one hand braced against the wall, her breathing unsteady. Naomi, he said quietly. She turned. Her composure had cracked. Just slightly, but enough. I shouldn't have brought you here. He stepped closer. Why not? Because I forgot what it felt like to be seen. You think that's a weakness? She looked at him, her voice barely audible. I think it's dangerous. Then why show me this part of your life? Because I wanted to know if it would scare you off. He stepped closer. It doesn't. She didn't move. I see you, he said. Not the money. Not the reputation. You. Naomi's voice broke. And I don't know what to do with that. Nolan reached out, brushing her fingertips with his. Then let's figure it out together. She didn't say anything, but she didn't pull away. The morning after the gala, Nolan stood on the Penthouse terrace, the city stretching endlessly beneath him. Ava laughed softly from the living room, her voice carrying through the floor-to-ceiling windows as she played with a marble puzzle Naomi had given her. The skyline was quiet at this hour, the usual chaos of horns and sirens dulled by the height. Naomi stepped beside him, barefoot, holding 2 mugs of dark coffee. Her silk robe floated just past her knees, a contrast to the structured armor she wore in the world beyond this space. She handed him a mug without a word. Did she sleep okay? He asked, nodding toward the living room. She was out before I finished reading the second page of that bedtime book, Naomi said. She kicked once, then curled up like a cat. Sounds about right, he said. She's usually restless when she's somewhere new. She didn't seem restless. She seemed safe. He glanced at her. That's not a word people usually associate with you. Naomi held his gaze for a moment. No, it's not. The silence between them was different now. Not tense or uncertain, but charged with clarity. Something had shifted last night, something neither of them had expected. Naomi turned toward him. There's something I need to tell you. Nolan straightened. All right. I've been approached by a media group in London. They want to buy Langford Media. Full acquisition. I'd step away as CEO. He blinked. That's huge. They've been circling for months, but I never seriously considered it. Until now. Because of last night? Because of you, she said. Because for the first time in years, I asked myself what I actually want. Not what I should want. Not what looks good on paper. He set his coffee down. So what do you want? I don't know what comes next, but I know I don't want to build it alone. Nolan reached for her hand without hesitation. Then don't. She let out a breath, something fragile and unguarded in it. You make things feel simple. They're not, he said. But that doesn't mean we can't choose the version that makes us feel alive. Naomi leaned against the railing, her voice lower. I've spent so long keeping people out. I didn't even realize I built a fortress I couldn't leave. You didn't leave it, he said. You invited someone in. She didn't answer, but the way her fingers tightened around his said everything. Later that afternoon, Nolan sat on the carpeted floor beside Ava, helping her fit the last piece of a wooden puzzle into place. Naomi watched from the doorway, her expression unreadable. She's bright, she said. She sees everything. She gets that from her mom. Nolan replied, not looking up. Naomi stepped into the room. You've never mentioned her. She left when Ava was a baby. Said she wasn't made for this life. Naomi knelt beside him, quiet. And you? I wasn't made for giving up, he said. And Ava deserved someone who wouldn't. She nodded, the answer settling somewhere deep in her. You've been carrying all of it alone. Not anymore. Naomi reached for Ava's hand. Would you like to see the rooftop garden? Ava's eyes lit up. With the fish pond? Yes. But only if you promise not to feed the koi cereal again. Ava giggled and ran ahead. Nolan followed, watching Naomi from behind the way her hand hovered just above Ava's shoulder, protective but not controlling. She didn't look like she was trying. She just was. Upstairs, the rooftop garden bloomed in quiet color, tucked away behind tall hedges and manicured stone paths. Naomi had rarely come up here. The space had been designed for show, like most things in her life. But now, with Ava skipping ahead and Nolan beside her, it felt like something else entirely. A small bench overlooked the pond, and they sat in silence, watching Ava toss bits of approved fish food into the water. I've been thinking, Naomi said after a while. If I sell the company, I'll still have the building, and the penthouse, and more time than I've had in a decade. And I want to do something with it. Not another corporation. Something real. Something that helps people like you. He tilted his head. Me? Single parents. People rebuilding. People who don't get second chances handed to them. I could fund a scholarship. A housing initiative. Something that changes lives. That's incredible, Nolan said, surprised. She looked at him. You changed mine. It feels like the least I could do. He reached for her hand again. You don't owe me anything. I know. That's why I want to. That night, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Naomi stood in front of a long, black velvet box on the kitchen counter. She didn't say anything at first, just opened it and turned it toward him. Inside was a slim gold bracelet, a small engraving on the inside. Not a logo, not her initials. Ava. Nolan picked it up slowly. This is for her, Naomi said. So she knows she'll always have a place here. He blinked once, then looked at her. You didn't have to do this. I didn't do it because I had to. He set the bracelet down and stepped closer. You're not the person I expected when I first walked in here. Neither are you, she said. He kissed her then. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. Just two people who had built walls for different reasons and finally found someone worth tearing them down for. Weeks passed. The sale went through. Naomi stepped down, announcing her transition into philanthropy with little fanfare. Headlines speculated, but she didn't care. For once, the noise didn't matter. Nolan moved into the penthouse with Ava, who decorated her new room with drawings, books, and a fish tank Naomi insisted on installing. They made pancakes on Sundays, argued over which plants needed more sunlight, and danced barefoot in the kitchen when the city lights flickered outside. One morning, Naomi stood at the terrace railing, watching the clouds roll over the skyline. Nolan stepped behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. Still missed the boardroom? Not even a little. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. She turned, her voice soft. Neither am I. And they didn't. They built something together messy, imperfect, real. Not a life made of marble and glass, but one filled with laughter, second chances, and the kind of love that didn't ask for permission. The kind that stayed. The rain started just as they pulled up to the old stone building nestled between the Hudson River and a stretch of wild trees that had survived the city's slow creep. The place had once been a women's shelter abandoned for years, its foundation still solid, but everything else left to decay. Naomi stepped out of the car first, her boots crunching over gravel, the hem of her long, camel-colored coat fluttering against the wind. Nolan followed, umbrella in one hand, Ava's small fingers curled securely in his other. She wore a bright yellow raincoat and pink boots that splashed gleefully into every puddle they passed, unbothered by the chill rolling off the river. This is it? Nolan asked, glancing up at the weather-worn facade. Naomi nodded. It's the beginning. They walked through the creaking double doors, stepping into a hollow space where fragments of past lives still lingered, peeling wallpaper, sunlight bleeding through fractured window panes, and a silence that settled deep. Ava pointed toward a stained mural on the far wall. There are butterflies. Naomi smiled faintly. There used to be a playroom here. I want to rebuild it. Nolan looked around. You really want to turn this into a community center? Yes. With private rooms, a daycare, on-site counselors. A sanctuary for mothers who don't have anywhere else to go. She turned to him. I don't want to just write checks anymore. I want to be there. I want Ava to see us building something real. He studied her. You're serious about this? I've already bought the property. The permits are in process. Construction starts next month. And you're going to manage all this? I'm going to live it, she said. With you. Ava tugged on Nolan's coat. Can I paint the butterflies when it's ready? Naomi crouched beside her. You can paint as many as you want. You'll be the first artist we hang on the wall. Ava beamed. Back at the penthouse that night, the three of them sat around the dining table, the rain still tapping steadily against the windows. The lights were low, the atmosphere quiet and warm. Naomi passed Ava a slice of apple pie, then reached across the table and took Nolan's hand. There's one more thing, she said. He raised an eyebrow. You've had a lot of one more things lately. This one's different. She stood, disappeared into the bedroom, and returned with a small velvet box different from the one that had held Ava's bracelet weeks ago. She placed it on the table in front of him, then sat back down, her face unreadable. He opened it. Inside was a key. Not to the penthouse that was already his. Not to her car or her office. To a house. A real house. She spoke before he could ask. It's in Rhinebeck, just outside the city. Big backyard, lots of trees, a fireplace. Room for a garden. A real home. We can keep the penthouse for work, for the city. But I want something quieter for weekends. For Ava. Nolan's fingers closed around the key. You bought a house? I bought us a life, she said. One with space to breathe. One that doesn't revolve around boardrooms and headlines. One where we can be a family. He looked at her for a long moment, then stood and pulled her into him. You already gave us that. This just makes it permanent. Naomi leaned her forehead against his. Say you'll come with me. I'm already with you. Nolan kissed her, slow and deep. Ava giggling in the background and shouting something about pie being the real reason everyone was happy. They spent the next weeks packing small boxes, planning furniture, arguing over paint colors, and drawing up the layout for the women's center. Naomi took calls from architects while Nolan built Ava a lemonade stand out of unused plywood. The days blurred into something rhythmic and full, each moment layered with intention. On a crisp Saturday morning, with the leaves just beginning to turn gold, they stood in front of the house Naomi had bought. It sat at the end of a quiet lane, wrapped in ivy with a wraparound porch and tall oak trees that whispered in the wind. Ava ran across the lawn, chasing a butterfly with a net too big for her small hands. Naomi leaned against the porch post, watching her. I never thought I'd have this. Nolan stepped beside her. You made it happen. No, she said, voice softer. You reminded me it was possible. The ceremony for the women's center followed a month later. The building was restored, the mural kept intact, now framed by new walls and fresh colors. Naomi wore a simple navy dress. Nolan held Ava on his hip as she cut the ribbon, her voice strong and sure as she spoke to the crowd. We built this for women who were told they had nothing left, she said. But we know better. Every life can be rewritten. Every ending can be a beginning. That night, they returned to the house in Rhinebeck. Nolan grilled on the back patio while Ava played with the neighbor's dog. Naomi came out barefoot, her hair loose, holding 2 glasses of wine. I don't miss the skyline, she said. You still have it, Nolan replied. You just don't need it anymore. She stepped closer, resting her head against his shoulder. You think she'll remember this when she's older? She'll remember the love, he said. That's what sticks. Naomi looked at him, her eyes soft. I didn't know I could have this. You didn't know you deserved it, he corrected. But you do. She kissed him then, slow and certain, the kind of kiss that didn't rush, that didn't need fireworks because the warmth of it ran too deep. Inside, Ava called for marshmallows. They walked in together, laughter trailing behind them like a promise. There were no more walls to climb, only love, and everything that came after,